Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you can start now.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So basically today what I had planned for discussion was a statutory audit perspective to IT controls which we need to review, and to what extent we need to review, and what will be the requirement or what will be the basis for which we are defining this verification. So first I would like to um, actually go into what are the various control frameworks or regulations which are binding IT review for an auditor. Like why an accountant should review IT. That is because of regulatory requirements which are put under Companies Act. So we'll see in detail in next slide what all areas of Companies Act is requiring us to depend on certain controls and procedures which are followed in IT. Then if we are auditing NBFCs, we have separate regulations on IT gap analysis and IT governance frameworks for NBFC, both systemically important as well as small NBFC, that is less than 500 crore turnover also, than 500 crore turnover also. Similarly, for banks, we have not just gap analysis and governance framework, but a detailed technology risk management and cyber fraud management, where the auditor is also expected to evaluate those controls binding these areas. So all regulated entities, mandatorily IT audit is required. Like the regulated entity as such, regulated under IRDAI, SEBI, or Companies Act or RBI. So any company which comes under any regulated entity, it is mandatory IS audit is required, IT IS audit. Companies Act, the limit which is covered is lesser. So that is what we are going to see today, which is IT general controls. General controls means these are the common baseline criteria which are required to be followed. It is like if you are maintaining books, you are expected to follow either of one, single entry or double entry system. We cannot maintain an Excel and say that is books of accounts. So same way, there is a baseline requirement in how you are implementing IT. So that if we evaluate, that is sufficient under Companies Act. But when it is more regulated entities under either of the regulator, the controls which are expected is much higher. The assurance that an auditor is expected to give is also much higher. So those are the regulatory requirements. Apart from that, we have some internal control frameworks which are like defining the baseline requirements. Like now regulator is telling this you should have. How you have to have that, the regulator is not telling. So for example, Companies Act says you can maintain books of accounts in electronic form. But how the company should implement books of accounts in electronic form is not given by Companies Act. So for that, we will go to either of the framework. So frameworks are going to be something like accounting standards or auditing standards. So for internal controls, we have COSO, Committee for Sponsoring Organization, which is giving the base framework basis which IT, not just IT, it is for internal financial control. So in that we have 16 principles. The 11th principle talks about implementing controls over information technology. So it is an entire, like for example, if we are evaluating IFC, internal financial controls under Companies Act for audit, the best practice baseline framework which we can adopt will be COSO. So COSO covers also IT controls, but not limited to IT controls. It talks about the entire internal controls inside the organization. So for computer related controls, we have 2-3 frameworks prominently used. One most popular is COBIT. COBIT 5 is the recent framework which is widely adopted, where COBIT is entirely talking about IT governance alone. How to implement IT governance across your people, across culture, across management to the end transaction processing people. So it tells how to implement. So the regulators are telling you need to implement, and the best practice frameworks are telling how you can implement. So both are important. Why these are important is because this is giving only direction. So Companies Act is telling many things. So we'll see few things. Like for example, we are talking about maintenance of books of accounts in electronic form. So here what we are meaning is, when we say you can maintain books in electronic form, there is some specific application controls that I need to evaluate. Like it should be in double entry, it should have a trial balance, it should be a balance sheet, there should be some cutoff procedures. How am I going to control that my posting period is managed? So there are some specific application controls which I have to evaluate to maintain books in electronic form. So we used to, if we are using Tally, we will maintain like every year we will close Tally and open next year. We will do opening balance, carry forward. These are all actually application controls which we are following. So next, Companies Act talks about data retention period. So they say like you need to maintain books for this many years. There it should be in unaltered and it should be in retrievable format. So there we are going to evaluate the backup procedures. So we have to ensure the organization is having adequate backup procedures. So backup procedures is covered under this retention period when we talk about. So next, the basic control assumption for all companies is going concern. So we are auditing every balance sheet considering that there is going concern assumption. So when we talk about going concern assumption, what is the parameter basis which the going concern assumption is evaluated is basis business continuity plan. How the organization is structuring. If my server fails today, how will I retrieve my systems? How long the business will fail? Will I be able to reconstruct my business? So all that comes under business continuity plan. So this is also part of general controls. So today we are going to cover only general controls, but I'm talking about entire IT, whatever is covered under Companies Act in this slide. But we will go further. So then we talk about internal financial controls under section 143.3, where we are evaluating the internal controls binding the organization are in place. That is the process of the numbers which are generated for the trial balance and balance sheet is having adequate financial controls in place. So when we are going to give assurance on that, what are we expected to evaluate is the application controls. There we want to evaluate whether the application has adequate process and systems, because all organizations are IT driven now. If it was not IT driven, we will see only voucher, whether signature is there, approval is there, cross signed, numbers are right. So these will be some parameters which we will be evaluating in a manual system. But if the organization is in IT, then actually when we are evaluating IT IFC, it becomes mandatory for us to evaluate application controls. So now from April 2021, April 2022, we have audit trail requirement, where actually we are going to evaluate information security. So audit trail mandatorily should be implemented whenever the organization is maintaining books in electronic form. So here what the Act is trying to tell, the Act is asking us to ensure that the data is generated and maintained in the form it was prepared. And it is also saying like if you are altered from back end, front end, trail should be there. Timestamp, maker, checker, all details should be captured. How many times a form was modified, how many times an entry was modified, all the details they are asking us to capture. So now this is where we are talking about information security. There we are talking about access controls. It can be logical access controls. It can be even intruder who can come and change. So you would have learned about or heard about attacks like SQL injections. So there common attacks will be like Facebook, they are defacing our pages, where he is gaining access to our Facebook page in Facebook's database and duplicating that page and using our contacts to gain some other access. How he is doing it? He is actually creating an access to the database of Facebook and modifying the data. So that is information security. So even cyber security controls are coming under audit trail, where I should ensure my database logs are protected, access is restricted, all that. So audit trail, this gives a very great area where risks are very huge. So now even this is covered under our assurance perspective. So next, server maintenance in India. So we have this requirement from 2013 Act starting itself. Why mirror server? Even if you are in cloud, they say that mirror server should be in India. Why? Mainly because if there is a search, seizure, or inspection we under MCA or any other act, they want to confiscate books of accounts. So if your server is across countries, like in different country, it will be very difficult for them to take control or take charge of the systems in other country, because that will require that country's approvals. So they made mandatory under the act to ensure that they are able to have access to the systems whenever required. So there we are again going to talk about physical access control and even logical access control. So that is virtually logging into the servers as well as physically accessing the servers. Both are going to be the parameter when we are going to evaluate server maintenance in India clause. So these are all some of the areas where IT controls are expected to be evaluated. So these are all actually audit perspective, because we are auditing compliance to Companies Act and any other laws is what we are giving in report. So if we see here, application controls, okay, are broadly within the scope of internal auditor or the management. And actually the auditor also has a role in this, but that role is going to be of more transaction auditing, but evaluating the controls within the system. And for today, we are not going to cover that. So that area of application controls is called as ITAC. ITAC. So ITAC means it is information technology application controls. Wherever we are going inside one particular application, whenever we are going inside one particular application, we call it IT application controls, ITAC. But today we are going to talk about general controls. So this 4 areas and a few more areas we are going to cover. So these are all the general controls which are like irrespective of the application. These are some basic parameters which we need to follow. So those are called as general controls. So how we can differentiate application controls and general controls? So we can take a simple analogy to understand. So if we take a house, the foundation of the house, the general gate, perimeter security, then you having a bureau or a safe in your house, then having doors for every room in the house, having windows with a shutter or a lock, all these are general controls. But inside the house, let's say you have a biometric sensor or motion detector, home automation system, then you have curtains, ACs, doors, everything monitored centrally through some one phone application. All that is internally you are customizing, which is the application controls. So those type of areas when we are going to cover, which is customized for your particular organization, for your comfort, for your business process, all that will be our application control. But generally when you build a house, basic control will be that you will have a foundation stone, you will have a gate, you will have a compound wall. Every house should have a door and lock. These are all called as general controls. So now how this analogy is going to help us understand company is, so in a company, the server is going to be common irrespective of application. The backup procedures, irrespective of any data that is generated, all data that is generated should be backed up. Irrespective of whomever you are mailing, whether it is within Chennai person, outside Tamil Nadu person, outside India person, the network security is mandatory. Okay, whether you're going to download from intranet, from YouTube or some Google website, you need an antivirus. So the purpose can be anything, but these are all the general perspectives which are required to be followed. So those will be covered under general controls. So how technically they are defining this is the infrastructure behind which an application is hosted will be called as IT general controls. So you can host Tally, but to host Tally, you need a server. So the host infrastructure is going to be the server, which is a IT general control. So let's say you have an attendance system. Okay, it requires a biometric device. So now managing this biometric device and managing the server in which HR application is hosted is going to be my IT general controls. You want to have one modem for your office. through which so many systems, phones and other PDAs are going to take connection. So all this will be my modem will be my IT general controls. What I'm going to do with that internet is my IT application controls. So application controls, as a statutory auditor perspective, we don't go into too much detail, because in IFC perspective, if even manual controls are there, we are fine. If application data integrity is there, we are fine. But IT general controls, it's mandatory for us to evaluate. So here one more perspective for IT GC will be, this will be like point in time. Today, what controls are there? So it will be very difficult to evaluate for a period. So generally, all control evaluation will be like for a point of time only. So if we want to evaluate for a period, it will be like a very technical task. Like for example, we have to go into the system configuration, evaluate how much changes were done, when which change was done. So tracing back the history trail and all is almost like a forensic audit only. I will not say it is not doable. As a statutory auditor, we are not doing it. Okay. So, but what we are evaluating is at this point of time, what all is there, how this has worked, what all data is retained for the time being. So that is what we are evaluating. So one more aspect which we are going to cover today, which is part of application control, but we are going to do in access control, is because of its prime importance. That is going to be your logical access control. So user access management and logical access control is actually ITAC only physical access control is going to be ITGC, because logical access is generally limited to an application. Like in Tally, you will create user. So, but as part of ITGC, generally all statutory auditors are evaluating this also, because it is of prime importance. We want to know maker checker is the primary perspective or objective with which we are auditing. So that is defined through logical access control, defining role, giving access rights, giving email ID, giving user ID, password, all that. So because of that, though IT general controls technically does not include logical access control to an application, the statutory auditor is doing it because it is for his comfort that he is doing ITGC, not for getting certified under COBIT or COSO or ISO. He is not doing for either of this. He is doing only for certifying this, where he wants to evaluate who is doing what, whether there is excessive rights, whether there is transactions getting approved or posted without approval. So these are the perspectives. As a statutory auditor, I am interested. So even though IT logical access control is not part of ITGC, we will do it. So this also we'll be covering today. So now, how we are going to evaluate ITGC? So will everybody have same ITGC requirements? No. So we can take a car example or the same home example. Like you have an independent house, what type of controls you need? If you are in a leased property, what type of controls you need? You are in a rented house, what type of controls you will need? Let's say you are in the co-working space or a hostel. Okay, what type of controls you need? It is going to be totally different. So for a person in a hostel, only if he has a suitcase and a lock for it, that is more than enough. He doesn't need to worry about whether this building has fire safety, whether some intruder will come inside, break inside and come into my hostel and kill me. He is not worried about anything else. Okay, whether water tax is paid, whether property tax is paid, nothing is worried. He is only a occupier of one bed in a dormitory. So in a dormitory, this is not required. Same thing in a bus. You are going to take a ticket, travel point to point. So in such cases, I don't need to evaluate whether the bus has RC, whether the driver is licensed, whether he has taken FC for the vehicle. All that is not my worry, right? The infrastructure audit is going to be evaluating whether the controls for running the vehicle is there or not. But if you are going to go for software as a service, this will be irrelevant or not possible to evaluate, because the organization is not actually doing it by itself, right? So this is the most important aspect of understanding the scope of ITGC. Okay, if I am going for a software as a service product like QuickBooks, Zoho Books, actually my role for managing the IT general controls is like nothing. I'm just paying per user license fee. I am not hosting Zoho. Zoho is in Zoho's cloud. Okay. User access is already defined. I'm just creating IDs. Okay. And I can give some rights that is there. I'm not putting SSL certificate to ensure encryption and transfer of data. I am not going to take backup. He is taking cloud backup. Okay. Maybe I may pay for taking copies of backup in particular format, but I am not responsible for doing it. So in software as a service model application implementation, my ITGC scope will be restricted to SLA validation. ITGC scope will be restricted to SLA validation. So I will validate SLA, and I have two standards. One is standards on auditing 402 type 1, type 2 certificate. Then we have service organization controls. We have SSAE 16. Again, type 1, type 2 report, which is talking about, this is international. Okay, these two reports, SOC certificate and SSAE 16 certificates are international. This is Indian. This is given by ICAI. So what is this? The service organization, that is Zoho, should provide a certificate to this client that I am having adequate controls in my infrastructure. That if a statutory auditor accepts and evaluates SLA, okay, SLA and SOC certificate is more than enough to evaluate ITGC. No other area is expected to be done, and because there's nothing else required to be done also, because I'm only paying per user and I'm not doing any modification to any infrastructure he is having, and I'm not capable of or not authorized to do any modification to any infrastructure he's having. I cannot go to the dormitory and say like, change this bed, I will put only my bed, like that Pamal ki sambandham and all we cannot do. So there it is restricted to SLA and SOC certificate, service organization controls certificate. So generally this is called as service organization control certificates or SOC. So we will be seeing multiple SOCs, but this SOC is an assurance function where he should get, the bus should get audited by himself and come and give that certificate to us. Okay. So next is platform as a service. Okay. So this platform as a service and infrastructure as a service are little different. So platform as a service is I hire server with some software and I'm going to host my application there. Like for example, I buy SharePoint in Microsoft, Azure Cloud in Microsoft, and in that I'm hosting my applications and I'm allowing my people to work. Then that is platform as a service. Okay, I'm not going to direct Azure platform and I'm not buying, but I am going to a data center, taking few racks on lease. Okay, and I am going to place my racks in my devices in those racks, and I am going to control that. Then it is IaaS. So that is if it is a taxi, I have some modifications which I can do. So the route will be defined based on my requirement. Okay, still the infrastructure management maintenance is of vehicle owner and driver. Okay, but here not just vehicle is not mine, the driver will be mine in leased car. So here the driver, what we tell is the infrastructure applications, like the server will be mine, the database will be mine. Okay, where I am going to manage all this, but it's not in my location, but it's going to be in a vendor location. So your driver is mine. Okay, driver validation is mine, car management is mine, but car is not mine. Okay, so that is IaaS, and platform as a service is where I am evaluating like only root definition I can do. So this is the most companies go for this, like our Tally, SAP, Oracle. Okay, all these applications will come under platform as a service, where they give the platform for development. Okay, and they give all the rights for development also to us, so we can customize to our business process and then we can install. Okay, so own premises is going to be something like I build my own software. Okay, I host my own devices, own software, own servers, own databases. Everything is mine, nothing was outsourced. It's like I'm owning my data center myself. Okay, so generally banks will go for this only. Bank, large NBFCs, all of them will be having this only on-premise solution, where the data confidentiality is like prime importance. They will not go for any third-party products. They will go for all own solution. So where the ITGC scope is going to be highest. So this is the place it is going to be highest, where because all my infrastructure is owned by me. Here again, only the place is different. All my infrastructure is going to be again owned by me. So all year and year, it will be same. ITGC scope will be same. I am responsible for backup. I am responsible for business continuity. I am responsible for physical security. I am responsible for logical security. Okay. So here again, my scope is reduced only. Okay. So because here again, it's only application controls I'm customizing. The car owner, FC license, background verification, everything is outsourced. So ITGC scope for between platform as a service and software as a service is again going to be equal, where I'm restricting to SLA and SOC. Okay. So here I'm going to evaluate everything, where what type of controls are implemented, everything we have to evaluate. So what are the major areas we need to cover is IT governance. That is, how am I aligning my business objectives to IT objectives? Am I having a transparent system? Am I having a proper dedicated IT department which is working towards my business goals? That is the prime importance here. So IT governance review is going to be my first or the foremost area for review under IT general controls. The second basic parameters which I'm going to evaluate is the physical and logical access control. So physical access control is my doors, locks, perimeter security, how secure is my data center location, all that will come under physical. Logical access is not restricted to application access, but also to who is accessing my database, who is accessing my servers, who can log into my router, who can log into my firewall. All that controls also come under logical access control. So next is my network security or information security, where I'm talking about firewall, intrusion detection system, who can access my mail, who can mail me, who my organization people can mail, what they can download, what they cannot download, all that is monitored by network security. That is my next area for IT general controls. So next is configuration and change management. So all this when I'm going to do, how am I maintaining audit trail? How am I ensuring that mistakes that I do once are not getting repeated? All that will be covered through my change management process. So next, what is that we need to do is the backup evaluation. So what is backed up, how it is backed up, how am I in a position to retrieve this backup? Okay. And lastly, last but not the least, I have to evaluate going concerns, that is business continuity and disaster preparedness. If something goes wrong, how agile is my systems that it will be able to bounce back and make my systems in an operatable manner. So these are the major perspectives of IT general controls. So these are like primary. There are like, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the basic fundamental things which are required to be evaluated. So IT governance, main thing is business goals, alignment to IT goals. That is the prime focus for us. So I think that is very self-explanatory. So next is logical and physical access control. So here what we are going to talk about is the how am I protecting my people? Okay, so people and computer, first important resources is my people resource. Okay, second important is my IT, but protecting IT from people is also important. Okay, so in physical access control, we'll be evaluating both. How am I ensuring my IT staff are protected, my staff are protected, all that is also covered, and how my IT systems are protected. Okay, so here we talk about the minimum 3 layers of security, where actually I ensure that there is a perimeter wall, there is a gate security, there is a CCTV compliance, there is a mechanism to monitor visitors who can come inside, who can go outside. Okay, then I have to also ensure that every gate has, at least my server room gate should have or gate or door should have a lock and key. It should have a separate camera monitoring to ensure that I'm able to monitor who's having access to my system. Why it is important? If I am having access to Tally one user ID and password, I can do what? Maximum pass 4 entries. Okay, if I have access to server, I can delete entire Tally application itself from the system. So which is more critical? Protecting the server room is more critical than actually protecting the password in the username. So all IT system or devices will be critical devices, because it's like master data and transaction data. If I create a duplicate master, it is more risk than creating a wrong entry, because wrong entry is restricted to one entry. If I create a duplicate or a fictitious master data, one vendor code, I can put 100 wrong entries against that vendor code. So which is more critical? Master data management is more critical than transaction data. So in that aspect, our physical access to our core IT devices is like primary importance. That is what we are evaluating in this aspect. So basic things what we generally check will be actually the server room should have fire extinguisher. Okay, it should not be in ground floor. It should not be in ground floor because it is will be prone to flood, and in India it is like very difficult to predict when there will be rain, when they will open a dam. So generally itself, if you notice, all companies will be having server room in first floor or second floor only. And all data centers also will be in first floor, second floor, or third floor only. Mostly I have never seen a data center or IT system setup which is there in a ground floor location. So what is my flood safety and what is my evacuation procedure for that? Then how am I protecting from dust? Because actually with dust also many times our systems fail. So generally, so only they make like closed environment with the air conditioning. So generally all our server rooms will be like closed environment with air conditioning, mainly to protect the systems from dust and humidity both. So we have this HVAC systems which actually will be working for managing dust and humidity. Then perimeter security we discussed, doors we discussed. So these are the major minimum controls which we have to have. In addition to that, if possible, that server room can have one more CCTV camera to monitor that room's access. So this is the parameters which we have to evaluate for physical access control. So next is logical access control. So in logical access control, what all we need to do? First, users should be separately identified. Common IDs should be minimum, like accounts manager. I create one ID and I give access to that ID for 5 people. I should not do that. Why? Because having audit trail itself will, the entire concept of maker checker or entire concept of creating unique identity for the purpose of actually evaluating whether that person only has done that job is actually lost if we do not have user management. So uniquely identified users. Next is session management. So every time you log on, there should be a session which is actually logging off. Like for example, 15 minutes active session, like our income tax portal, GST portal, it will auto log off after that. Why? Mainly unattended sessions. You forget, leave and go, someone else is taking your system. You don't want someone to do that. So we should enable session management as a part of logical access control. Then we have suspension of inactive user IDs. So always inactive user IDs create a risk wherein some illegitimate people are having access or using this access for doing some what to say, unwarranted tasks. So suspension of inactive users is also an important part of logical access control. Then we have privileged user access management. So normal user management and privileged user management, the only difference is these are the people having access to core IT devices. Like, let's say we have in our office itself, we'll consider in an audit firm, we will have a server, we'll have a some basic data management applications. We may have a payroll system. And now we have an IT guy who is managing the servers, managing the laptops, which we have, creating, managing the network device and all. So now if that guy is on leave, how are we going to manage it? Or let's say that guy is disgruntled. We have like a previous day, we had scolded him something, he got angry. What is the risk that he deletes something and goes? What is the risk that he will create some sabotage? So for that, what we say is always privileged user identity management will be like having more than one layer of security for IT. People having access to IT devices. Okay, so generally we say one person should not do all work. Single point of failure. It should be like more than one person should be there, so that there is control there also to ensure that only legitimate activities are done. Next is, if both the people are joining hands and doing something wrong, how am I going to retrieve my system? So what is the best practice they say is all the server passwords, database passwords, then this internet access passwords like router management, modem management, all these passwords should be written in a at least a paper or a notepad and handed over to the owner of the organization. It can be a managing director or a director or a partner, because in an event of disruption, there should be some continuity where someone is able to, even a third party you bring in, he should be able to log into the system. There cannot be a scenario where no one is having access to the system. So there should be some continuity there also. Then password configuration. How strong is your password configuration and how you are saving and retrieving your password? So I will show some examples for password configuration also. Like now let's take example, our normal office passwords can be saved in plain text. But let's take a debit card, credit card passwords. If it is saved in plain text, the entire banking team will be having access to all my data, right? So that is a huge risk. So I cannot have that. So generally password configuration and management, regulated entities and very sensitive data, it should be saved in an encrypted form. Okay, to ensure that only legitimate people are having access, like even legitimate people will not be able to view the password. Even if they are able to access my password, they will not be in a position to view my password because it will be in encrypted text. So those are some primary logical access controls which we will evaluate. So I have put in some examples. Like for example, there should be a user access management where every user has a defined role. So he is going to do purchase order creation, purchase order change, release, like that. So now if you see first person, he is having purchase order creation and goods receipt. So it is incompatible activity because this is to be done by purchase team, this is to be done by a stores team. So both is done by same person, means here itself I will identify that it is a problematic case. I need to say he is having excessive rights. So there should be a documented user access management. So we call this as UAM or access control list, ACL. So different names are there. SOD segregation of duties they say, ACL they say access control list. So who was having access to what? First it should be documented, then only implemented, because directly if you implement, on what basis they implemented we should know, right? Like I have put this user, this rights only, this user, this rights only. Whether this is approved by the board, whether it is approved by the management, at least CEO, CFO, are they aware of this? Very important. So there is a requirement that you should have an access control list prepared and approved by management, which is implemented by my IT, so that I can ensure that only rights which are as per good governance are implemented in the system. So next, this is a screenshot of password configuration where actually in any application, there will be a screen where I can go, like in my admin login, I can evaluate, I can configure what should be my access controls, what should be my password strength. So here, if you see, this is the password policy implemented. Like my password should have minimum of 1, maximum of 15 lowercase alphabets, minimum of 1 and maximum 15 uppercase alphabets, numeric characters, special characters, must not contain login ID, must not contain first name. This is a password policy I'm configuring. So when we are auditing IT general controls, actually we should go and evaluate this. Okay, because user ID, maybe I have created my password with multiple combinations. Maybe another person, it has allowed to create with very less password strength. So what is that I have to evaluate or audit when I'm evaluating a password policy is I have to go to my, I should ask my client IT team to guide me to go into that system's admin login and see the configuration screens there, how we have configured password policy to ensure that I have implemented adequate control. Same this thing we have to do for session timeout. I have to do the same thing for session management, parallel session, one ID, one system only I can log in. I cannot log in into multiple systems using same ID. Then again, audit trail and identifying unique user is lost. So all that will be evaluated in my master management in admin login. So this is a sample screenshot of how password will be saved in encrypted text in regulated and sensitive data handling industries. So you have an ID which will tag to a password. Even if the people who are having access to the database, okay, can see like this only, which is like in cryptic language. So this is called as hashing. Hashing means it's a one-way encryption where you cannot decrypt it. How it will authenticate them? Every time we put the right key, the lock will open. If you put the wrong key, the lock will not open. Okay, hash is one-way encryption where I can make it A to B. I cannot make it B to A. So that is the control or the parameter which is used for encrypting or ensuring my passwords are, or any critical information, not just password. Now RBI is saying even audit logs should be not for all systems, for sensitive applications of banks and insurance companies and all. RBI is saying that your log table itself should be in encrypted form. Okay, so there are similar activities which regulator is requiring. So how we'll audit it? We'll ask him to go into the database. We will also see what is in the database. If it is in non-readable form, well and good. Then password encryption is implemented. Okay. So next we are going to network security. So here what we are talking about is vulnerability assessment. That is to ensure whether my systems are prone to hackers or not. Then we have firewall where I am going to evaluate all my traffic which is coming inside my organization. So here how firewall will work? It will work based on rules. I will say, like, I will configure my firewall to say block all traffic from social media, block all traffic from let's say e-commerce websites, block all traffic from this particular pornographic content sites. So like that, when I'm going to put rules which are configured, then my firewall will block those rules alone, like that. It will block those websites, those IPs which are containing that type of content. So firewall is going to monitor that both inbound and outbound traffic. Then system performance evaluation. So here what we are talking is managing logs, managing system access, ensuring that all legitimate traffic is only coming. It's like more like a dashboard where I'm evaluating whether I am working efficiently or not. So what is antivirus? What it does have to do with security? So whatever applications I'm downloading or whatever systems I'm accessing from my organization device, in my antivirus, there will be a list or dictionary. They call it footprint of every known virus. Okay, footprint of every known virus will be in the antivirus dictionary. Okay, so once you download this application, what it will do is, or you subscribe to a product, it will actually subscribe along with the data dictionary which has of all the other viruses which have been identified so far. So every time your system is accessing a data or downloading a data, it will scan and see whether any of the files in your system is matching to a footprint of an antivirus which it has already identified. Okay, if it matches to any virus signature, then it will say, do you want to remove it? Do you want to keep it? So again, it can be in block mode. If any scan is found, you will not allow to download itself. You can configure, or you can say like accept the risk and download. So like that, we can configure how it should be evaluated or managed. So here, what is the prime importance is antivirus should be up to date, because antivirus is a list of viruses which are already found. Let's say you have not updated your antivirus for 1 month. It means all the new viruses that have attacked different computers for this 1 full month will not be updated in your antivirus. So in evaluating antivirus, what we will audit is, we will audit whether antivirus is up to date. Okay, whether antivirus is enabled in all the laptops and desktops of the organization. When we are auditing system management, we will evaluate system capacity. Like your server capacity is, let's take 1 petabyte. How much is consumed, how much is not consumed? How many users are active, how many users are inactive? So it's basically a dashboard for monitoring efficiency, something like MIS. Okay, system performance management will be something like MIS. In firewall, what we'll evaluate? In firewall, we'll evaluate what are the rules that are configured in the firewall. Okay, so those will be the parameters I'm checking in my network security. So next, what we are going to see is, so this is a small thing of a firewall, how we have different this thing. Then we have, this is a small log monitoring dashboard for server performance evaluation. Okay, so this is a screenshot from our systems. Any laptop, you can press Windows button, type event viewer. If you type event viewer, we will get this application security like this. So in that, if you go to properties, we can see actually how much logs you want to save, how much do you want to overwrite after this capacity. Because if you're going to save logs for innumerable time, it will be actually very huge and your system performance may lag. So generally logs are for fixed space in a fixed location where it will keep overwriting. Now our Companies Act is saying like you should not do that. So we have to modify all that. But currently it's like generally organizations have maximum of 15 days logs only. Okay, so that's a screenshot of that. Then we have antivirus. So basically what antivirus does is it does a scanning of every file to match any of the signature or footprint which is already there in the antivirus system. So change management, what we see in change management is any change, how it is escalated, how it is evaluated. That is, there should be a change requester. Based on the change, there should be a development. It can be like, let's say, even raising hard disk capacity. So there will be a change requester. Someone will evaluate and approve it, seeing whether it is really required or not. Then someone will purchase it. Then someone will deploy it and see whether it's working fine. Then they will implement it. Now, let's say there is audit trail requirement which is going to come in April. So before that, the organization should work for it. So there will be a change request from my compliance department where I'm saying that this should be considered. So my development team now actually all even products are working on how I'm going to enable all this. So my teams will sit and work how this should be implemented. Then they will test it in the test environment where they will see whether it is capturing all the logs as required as per regulation is captured. After that, they will implement into the production system. So this is the process of implementing or implementing a change. So this is an example change management form where I have a change ID, I have a requester designation, who is approved, who is implementing it, who is signed off, and who has approved. So similar to change management only, we have incident management. So incident management will lead to a change, but I should have an incident capturing mechanism. Like for example, for for normal business process, we have audit where I will see whether there is a approver checker, whether there is any outlier exceptions that is happening or not. Similarly, in IT, I should have an incident management program where I am evaluating or I am having a control mechanism to ensure that if there is something wrong happening, I have a mechanism to find it. Okay, if there's something wrong happening, I have a mechanism to find it. My employees should be aware of that methods, how they have to escalate, how they have to resolve. So after it is resolved and closed, there will be lessons learned. Okay, which is again now going to my change management to ensure that such mistakes or errors don't happen again. So that is my incident management. So next is backup and BCPDR. So we are coming to the end of our presentation. Only two more areas we have. So in backups, having a backup is fine. Okay, normal backup is fine. But what is the content is very important. Okay, it can be a manual backup mechanism. It can be a automated backup mechanism. What is more important is the content of the backup. Let's say you copy your folder in which you save all the files into a hard disk. Okay, so you imagine in a time of disaster, or let's say your laptop crashed. Okay, you need a new machine. Okay, you want to boot it within, let's say, half an hour and restore this backup. Will your backup open in the new system? Let's say your folder contained images, audio files, PDF files, then tally backup, then some database backup. All this you have backed up in a hard disk. So to open a PDF file, you need a PDF reader. To open tally backup, you need tally application. Then if you want to open Word, Excel document, you need Microsoft Office. To open a new laptop, you need an operating system, right? So when an organization is backing up, it is not sufficient if it backs up only the data or content. It should also back up all the applications, okay, logs, user access management, and all the things which are required to run that file. Okay, only file is not sufficient. So content of the backup is very important. Then frequency, depending on organization's requirement, like if it's highly critical organization, per day 1,000 invoices or 10,000 invoices they are handling, they have to take almost like every hour or every half an hour backup. Otherwise, the data loss will be higher. But let's say I am a company with annual billing cycle, monthly billing cycle. So monthly once backup is more than sufficient, because there's not going to be much invoices that are generated. And it will be like easier work to redo also if the few backup files are lost. So frequency depends on organization's business process and requirement. Then storage of the backup. Backup cannot be stored in the same location. It should be in an alternate site, because if something happens to the entire building also, okay, someone from my organization should be able to retrieve this, have copy of this backup and retrieve my organization's data. So storage is the next parameter which I have to evaluate. Mainly these are for business continuity only. So restoration. So I keep saving backup for last 5 years. I have never restored it once also. One fine day, some disaster happens, and I open my file and see that all the backup is not at all ready. It is the huge risk. So best practice is every 6 months at least the backup file should be restored and tested to ensure that the backup is maintained in all aspects and it is in a recoverable form. So this is called as recovery testing. Okay, so next is who is having access to this backup files. It should be restricted access. It should be with only few designated people, so that it is not altered. So next we have BCP and DR. So here basically we are trying to talk about how am I ensuring business continuity plan. So this is basically my fallback procedures. So what BCP best practice says is you should have a documented policy of how you are going to retrieve your organization if something fails. So first I have to identify risk. What can go wrong? Power failure. First, what is my business continuity plan? Should I go for a generator or I should go for a UPS? So that is my control. Next, let's say there is a flood. What am I going to do? My control is I'm not in ground floor. Okay, my core IT systems are not in ground floor. Next, say I have fire. Fire is the next risk which is going to hinder my business continuity. What is the control? I should have business fire extinguishers. Like that, I have to do a risk assessment of what all problems can happen to my business and how am I going to retrieve. Now, let's say a server failure. Okay, I should have a fallback procedure. Okay, I should have some redundant system or a extra system basis in which I can run my system if this thing goes wrong. Okay, my entire IT room is getting on fire. So I should have some redundant IT systems in an alternate location. At least not full capacity, at least some part capacity, I'll be able to retrieve and do my critical business operations at least quickly. Always restoration need not be full. I can retrieve only my critical operations and start my business. And then slowly I can recover and bring back balance applications. So this business continuity procedures and plans and my disaster recovery plans, basically, that's what critical applications immediately you need to do. So there should be some business continuity. Even if there's some very large disaster, how am I going to recover? So that should be documented and kept. So generally this backup policy, business continuity plan and DR plan will be combined in a same document and documented to ensure that all the employees are aware of the BCP procedures. All the employees are aware of what they should do when something goes wrong. At least all means at least that respective process owners should be aware. So they call them as BCP champions. So every team there will be one person who is trained for this purpose. So generally this document review is part of ITGC audit, where we will evaluate and check whether every year at least once they should have done backup recovery test, business recovery test, and there should be documented procedures and plans for this aspect. Okay. So with this, actually, I'm completing my presentation on fundamentals of IT general controls, which are required for statutory audit. So the forum is open for discussions. If you have any questions or any clarifications.
Thank you very much, CA Deepika, for a very enlightening session. I request members to raise their questions if they have. We'll spend some time for question. Any questions?
Hi, Deepika. Yeah, the name is Maxwell.
Yes, sir.
And yes, I was here for the entire presentation. Excellent presentation, I should say. I mean,
Thank you, sir.
I'm not an IT guy. I'm, of course, as we're all chartered accountants, I don't have that much knowledge on the IT side. And I would say I'm technologically backward, but I've seen you're excellently, I mean, or knowledgeable in this segment, right? And for that, I should really say kudos to you. I do have a question on this logical and physical access, which you touched upon, right? And sorry, in fact, I just give me a second. Where is this? Yeah. So you spoke about server maintenance, which is physical access and logical access. Now, again, I'm speaking to you from industry perspective. So we are basically a Canadian company, and we are headquartered in Canada, and we work off of software which we have basically procured a license, and we have installed it in servers which are located in Canada, right? We access the software remotely from India, and that's how we do our accounting. Though we can print records, access the database whenever we want. I mean, day, night, whenever possible. It's not an issue. Auditors I know have time and again repeatedly questioned us and told us that no, yes, this is going to become an issue because the data is not here in India physically. And I've constantly had a challenge with them where every year we go through this ritual of they bring up the point and I have to explain the situation. We prove it to them and we say, okay, there is reasonable control and logical access is there, so it's not a problem. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And from an audit perspective, I mean, are we compliant,
this
or is
organization
there
is
anything
incorporated in
we
India,
need
sir.
to do?
They have place of business in India.
Yeah, so correct. So the parent company is in Canada, and the subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary, is what we are, and we are basically here in India. Accounting tool is a tool called Sage, Sage 50 on the server in
yes,
Canada,
sir.
and we access the server remotely.
Sir, actually, on the application aspect, all the controls are logical, which is like you can define. So there, I don't think there's a problem. But under Companies Act, as you rightly told, there is a requirement that
problem,
at
okay.
least a mirror server which is maintained in a location in India. So generally, even we have a client who have their servers in Canada. So what they do is at least the backup alone, they get a
Right.
small server space in India, which is hosted in India itself, where at least the backups are not saved in Canada. A copy of backup is saved in India also. So it will satisfy the mirror server location here. So complaints perspective, you can do that, because the entire mirror server, if you want to keep, it will be like a bigger budget. But at least the backup, if you are able to give, actually that is also sufficient only. So I'm sure you have subscribed for backup also with the same cloud service provider. So
Yes.
yes, so what we can do is you can do get a server space only for the backup, and register only for backing up. You can, they itself provide the tool actually, where it will pull
Yep.
from that data center and push it to this server. Otherwise, if that company where you have hosted in Canada is having alternate sites, like if they have some arrangement with Indian data center service provider, then they can give a
Right.
certificate that this data is also mirrored in from their servers in India. So that's how IBM, Google, and Microsoft is doing. So actually, if they don't have server in India also, like data center in India also, they calculate hops actually, load balancing and hops, basically where the server capacity is cross utilized. It's not within one device, but it is spread across devices. So they
Right.
give a certificate stating that this is also what to say, mirrored in a location in India. So they give that
Got it.
complaint certificate to the auditors in India actually. So either
Okay.
one you can try. So mirror servers is the actual direct regulatory requirement, but at least backup I think is a good option to try, because the
No,
objective
because
of that is that only.
right. No, because we do have back. I mean, all those IT security protocol system, and because I mean, given we're a Canadian company, I mean, you would understand the protocols that they have, right? So internal control protocols, those backup, this thing, all that is very tightly in place. We have backup systems. However, backups are again made and they're hosted on the server in Canada. We
Hmm.
only have a remote desktop connection from India, and we connect through a broadband connection or anything like that. We connect to the server remotely, and then we access whatever data we want. But backups are again stored there itself.
Yeah,
That's
that alone. Actually, the objective of that section is when they have any case, any inspection, anything, they should be able to access and retrieve data which is in India, because otherwise it will be like difficult for them to access a data center in another country. So if you are able to establish a copy of backup maintained in India, I think that should suffice the
got it.
Companies Act requirement. Otherwise, it is fine, sir. If you are not coming under Companies Act or any other regulator, then actually it's absolutely fine with whatever best practice controls we are following for the organization.
Yeah, we are not a public limited, so we don't have all those other these things, and we are a
No,
growing
private
company.
limited also it's there, sir. It should be
Right.
like you're not under Companies Act itself.
Oh, got it. Okay, understand. So that way
Yes,
you
sir.
say.
LLP
So if
doesn't
that is
have
the
this
case,
requirement.
then we are no, we fall under the Companies Act.
Yes.
So we are a limited company.
So LLP partnership proprietorships don't have this requirement.
Don't have this requirement.
Private, public, mandatory, sir.
Mandatory. Got it. Okay. Thank you. I think that was pretty helpful.
Yes, yes, sir.
Any other questions? I think then we'll wind up. Thank you very much for the excellent session, CA Deepika. You have gone in detail about the ITGS audit. You have explained to us the IT general controls and the IT application controls. Thank you for taking so much of time for preparation and the presentation of this topic. So we are in depth with you. Thank you. Thank you for your excellent session once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for hosting me. It's a pleasure addressing all of you today.
Thank you.